Greetings, my excellent friend.
Welcome to Most Excellent Adventure to
Heavy Metal History.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Heavy Metal History Podcast. I'm your host, Dustin, and my guest for this week's episode, who knows, my old friend, Fred Calderon, bass player of Carnifex. Fred, thank you for doing the podcast, buddy.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. How long have I known you? Like 10 years at least?
Yeah, I think it's over 10 years. We met in 2009.
Yeah.
Oh, it is 10 years. It is 10 years. Fuck. I like nailed it right on the point.
You had just joined the band, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I was 2 years in.
Okay.
Yeah.
My mistake, sir. So
if you want to get specific, I joined in November of 2007.
Okay. Yeah, so that wasn't yeah. So wait, we toured in the summer of 2008. So I met you.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'm trying to put, because we did that Kill When You Dead tour with you guys when I was with Faith or Flames.
So technically it was like still within the first year.
Yeah. That's cool though, man, because like seeing all you guys where you're at now from that point in time to now, and like all that hard work that you've put in between that amount of time is just insane to me. It's so fucking cool.
And you were in the trenches with us, so like you saw like how hard we were going and what we had to do to make it sustainable. And then it's still kind of, it's not mind-boggling. It's more reassuring, like seeing what we went through then, and then what we're doing now to still find enjoyment in this without getting burnt out. Because if we were still hitting the touring cycle like we did then, we'd be burnt out and we'd all be hating life.
Yeah, I remember that last tour that I did with you guys in like 2012, where everybody was just kind of like, fuck this. The big one that I remember is we played like that barbecue restaurant, and that whole, man, that was just like a nightmare day, and everybody left so dejected and just like depressed, and I was like, man, this sucks, seeing your friends, you know, bust their ass on the road day in and day out, and they have to deal with shit like this.
Was that the one with Rings? No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
that was the one with
Rings of Saturn, I Declare War.
Yeah. Fuck. That was definitely depressing because it wasn't like just us. It was that local promoter. Like he went out of his way to have us there, and then his own venue, if you call it that, since you said it's a restaurant.
Yeah.
Try to rip him off.
Yeah,
and
that was bad scene.
That was
man.
dumb.
But that's just like
that was Ryan's. That was the closest to Ryan's hometown that we played. Besides,
you're right. Stuff. Yeah, man. You know, it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy just seeing like dealing with shit like that, and then you guys going to play Warped Tour.
Yeah, that was definitely a trip. When we got that announcement, we're like, "You got to be kidding me! This is awesome!" And then when we saw our stage lineup, we're like, "This is perfect! Like we totally fit in. This is awesome."
Yeah, they did a really good job on that year too, like curating all the bands on that tour. That was the final year. No, final year was
the
last
next year.
Yeah, I felt like that final year was just kind of like, whatever.
It's hard. Live music, I think, is really, really hard to sell nowadays. I mean, look at what our next tour is. We're doing Summer Slaughter.
Yep.
That's been going on since 2007. It's a live metal festival package, but it's a club tour.
Yep.
It shows you like the state of metal sometimes, where it's like you would expect, you see in Europe, there's big open airs, but then the closest we get is a 7 to 10 band package, still playing 500 to 700 cap rooms.
Yeah, and then you still have people that are like complaining about one or two bands on the package, and they're like, "Oh, not worth it because of those two bands." And it's like, well,
would go for Cattle D. That's it.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That's definitely some of the comments I've seen. It's like, fuck, man. So, Fred, about you. Let's get informal here. So, you know, it's kind of a cliche question that I ask, but I also, you know, knowing you so long, you know, I like to ask guys about their early influences as far as getting into metal. But the one thing I know about you is you're kind of more of a punk guy, which I really appreciate. And one thing I've always stated is that punk and metal are kind of like stepbrothers. They go hand in hand. So for you, what were those first bands and first records that you remember hearing that really changed your perspective on like, whoa, there's something heavier out here for music that I can get into?
I think really early on, the first two metal records that I got. I mean, obviously Metallica because they're on the radio.
Yeah,
and we had Rock 105.3, so they even had like mandatory Metallica. So at like 2 points of the day, you had to it had to be played on the radio. So that was going on, but I think the two biggest records that like really made a change where I was like, oh fuck, this is the style of music I want to get into. A friend of mine had a CD booklet that he brought to school, and he's like, we swapped. So I gave him like, he like looked through mine and I looked through his, and I was like, the first CD I saw was Megadeth, Countdown to Extinction. Ooh. And I was like, that's a sick name. I'm gonna check that out. And I put that record on as soon as I got home, and it just hit hard right in the beginning, that first track.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I never heard thrash at that point. I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. It sounded huge and clear. I could hear everything, clear the drums and the guitars. And then it just, every song was kind of distinct because it wasn't just like one whole soundscape where it's like, oh, this song sounds like this song sounds like this song. Every song had like a different kind of feel and element and vibe. And then I was just blown away, and I was like, I need more. And I started going backwards in that catalog. And then
that's a good point you make about that record, just real quick. Like the production value on that thing is seriously good for the time that it came out.
Yeah. Everyone was like about Black Album, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And hearing that, I was like, this record's so much fucking better. There's so much going on. And it still was heavy, it still was fast, but it was catchy.
Yeah.
And I still listen to Ashes in Your Mouth. Like that last track was just so epic.
Yeah, and it's definitely really unfortunate too what's going on with Dave right now with the throat cancer. So
yeah, but they said he caught it early. He's got treatments planned. Yeah. I mean, he has to cancel shows. The thing that bummed me out was recently they had talks about doing that Countdown reunion and the whole thing. They even jammed with Nick.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they had contracts put in place where it's just kind of like, oh, that's right. It's a business.
Oh, yeah.
They couldn't just do it. Like, it was business first, you know? And so it didn't happen.
Yeah, I heard before all that happened, they were planning to do like that Euthanasia 25th anniversary tour or shows or something for it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But those are the Marty Friedman records, so I don't know if Marty Friedman was going to tour with them or not. I don't think they ended on good terms, but who knows?
They said that there was a Marty interview where he did say it's like there was like some bad blood or some sour grapes, and but then they all wish each other the best and they're very cordial when they see each other. So there's no animosity.
Which is good. I always wonder about that stuff, when you hear like, oh yeah, this band member doesn't like this band member, and that's why they broke up. And it's like, well, maybe it's a little bit more complicated than that, at the end of the day, and maybe the guys just wanted to do other things. As far as I've ever known, like Marty Friedman, or not known him, but known about him, he's always just been like that hired gun that loves doing his own thing. So I think he maybe just got tired of doing Megadeth and went on his own way.
There's a thing that I read that like totally conflicts what one party says versus the other, where Marty was saying that he wasn't liking where the direction that the band was going. But then Dave goes and says he was bending over backwards to satisfy Marty, and that's why those records turned out the way they sounded, especially Risk. And it's like, but I thought but why is one saying the other? Like, it kind of sounds like there had to have been some label influence or maybe some wave that he saw, like a trend happening that he was trying to get on. Like there's other mitigating factors that we're not privy to.
Yeah, especially in the 90s, man. Like there's so much like genre stuff popping up that I can see how certain bands would want to ride a wave of something. I mean, Slayer did it when they were trying to put out, fuck was it Diabolus and Musica? You know, they were trying to hop on the new metal trend, and Kerry King fucking hated every second of it, but he didn't. You know.
Yep.
It's weird.
I always laugh because I look at those promos back in the day when Megadeth was doing Risk, and he looks like Kurt Cobain. He's got the grunge sweater on.
Yeah. I think I know. I've seen some of those.
And he was wearing those glasses. Yeah.
Was that when he was like full blown heroin addict though?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Regardless, I mean I
gotta brush up on my VH1.
Yeah, that's another cool thing I will say about Dave Mustaine though, is that, you know, he beat drug addiction, he beat alcoholism. He's gonna beat cancer. I mean, come on, dude's a fighter.
He caught it on early. It sucked. Like it bums me out when it's like it's cool he caught it, you know, but then you look at like Chuck Schuldiner, he didn't catch it, you know.
Yeah,
and then it got him.
Yeah, that bums me out. Have you seen that documentary about him?
I haven't, and I would eat that shit up.
It's I don't know if you have like Amazon Prime or anything, but it's on there. It's called Death, just Death, because there's that other documentary about that other band, Death. You should be able to find it.
I know what band you're talking about.
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, they have so many people that like worked with him. Man, yeah, definitely.
I've been collecting the Relapse reissues.
They're
like they're remastered,
phenomenal.
But it's Alan Touche. He did our records, remember?
Yeah.
And I've been just like reading the liner notes and looking at those pictures and just like, oh my gosh, like I missed out on all this stuff because, like, back to the conversation later on, I was in a thrash band with these dudes that were like the drummer from my very first band was self-recording in this thrash band. And the bassist they had at the time wasn't really playing really well. And he's like, let's just get my friend to track because I know he can play this stuff and he'll just track. And then I tracked their first demo. And then, of course, they're kind of like, he's kind of good. Can we just ask him? And he's like, well, you guys can ask him. I'm not going to ask him. And their guitar players asked me to join. And I was like, well, I'm already in this other band. And I was in that post-hardcore band with Sean at the time. And I was like, I'll fucking do it. Yeah, let's do it. It's like, as long as there's no conflicting schedules.
Yeah.
And their vocalist showed me Death. And I was just blown away. I was like, it was after the fact. He'd already been gone. Sound of Perseverance, though. It's just like, what is this? I've never heard anything like this. It's so heavy, but it's so like
melodic.
It's not heavy for heavy's sake. Yeah, it was all progressive.
Yeah,
really
it still fucking blows my mind that Scream Bloody Gore came out in '87. I mean, everything was thrash at that time, so there was not really much else that sounded like that record. It was, and he was so young, like fucking 17, 18 years old. Good God. I wish I could have wrote riffs like that at that age.
I went backwards, so I started with Sound of Perseverance and then went back every record until I got to Scream Bloody Gore.
Yeah.
So that's got to be a weird. I went like the opposite of like progressing. I like kept regressing a record, and that's why I love that band so much was because it was one guy at the helm, and it was this rotating lineup of musicians that were on the scene. Like I know other people would probably get pissed. They're like they want to hold on to everybody. But I was like, that was cool seeing like all these eras of this band and all these guys from those specific eras coming in and out and then seeing where they went and then their influence touching other bands. So I was like, this is so sick.
He had really good like ear for picking other like astounding musicians. And I think that was probably his biggest strength as far as, you know, each record that he put out.
What's your favorite Death record?
I think I'm with you on the Sound of Perseverance because that was my first one that I heard too. But I didn't go backwards. I went from that to Leprosy to Individual Thought Patterns and then to Scream Bloody Gore and then kind of seeked everything else out after that. But I think after hearing the crazy thing is too, after hearing those reissues, whatever they did for Scream Bloody Gore, the way that record sounds now at that remix or whatever they did, that is my favorite sounding record. Now.
All right, I haven't gotten there yet.
Oof,
I stopped at Spiritual Healing.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
My favorite was Individual. That's hands down. I always put that on. I love that record.
Yeah, man.
It's my favorite lineup. It's Gene Hoglan, Steve DiGiorgio, and Andy LaRocque,
Yep.
and his guitars, his solos are so fucking good, so melodic and tasteful, and his phrasing is incredible. And that was like right there. It's like aggressive and pissed, but catchy and melodic. I love it.
So I'm gonna spoil one thing for you from the documentary because it's a cool little factoid. When he went in there to record his solos for that record, he played them all off the cuff.
Nice.
And then when he did the overdubs for them, matched them perfectly.
Wow.
Like one take every single time. And he was like in, and then he was out. That was it. I was just like, when they said that, the doc, I was like, what the fuck? Like, how good of a guitar player is Andy LaRocque? And people just don't know it. God.
Yeah, and then on top of that, he's done so many guest spots that people don't even know that that's his solo. He's on an At the Gates record. He's on a Mellekish record.
Yeah, and he there was something else that I read about that he did too, and I was just like, what the fuck?
He's a producer. If you go on Wikipedia, you'll see all the albums he produced, and then they also throw in all the records that he's guest spotted on.
Damn. Okay. I'll have to look that up because I would be actually really curious to go see what else he's played on, because he is like one of my favorite guitar players, obviously because of King Diamond, but kind of like you were talking about too with individual thought patterns. There's something about his style of like soloing and riffing that I don't know, like you just hear it and you know it's him immediately, and it sticks with you every time.
A friend of mine who showed, like my old guitar player Jared showed me Merciful Fate, and I was all into it. But you're the one that sold me on King Diamond.
Oh, so for me, when I hear Merciful Fate and King Diamond, to me they're the same thing. What was it about them for you that like you kind of weren't into King Diamond as much as Merciful Fate?
I just don't think I listened to it. That's what it was. Like I don't think there was anybody around me that was playing King Diamond. But I was drinking beers with my buddy and his brother. Mm-hmm. Whenever we'd jam or hang out or we'd skate, and we would eventually just kick it and put music on, and they'd always at some point or another put on Merciful Fate. And it's just because of that era. Like we're listening to Sepultura and we're listening to Iron Maiden, and it just fit. Like it was like in between, you know?
Yeah.
And then I don't think anyone ever. The only instance of King Diamond I ever heard was Jay and Silent Bob. You know? And so then when you put it on, and I got to actually hear all that guitar stuff going on, I was like, oh my gosh. And then when we toured with Dom, he played Conspiracy.
Hell yeah.
So that was like another thing. It's like I got to listen to it and digest it in a casual environment. I didn't have to study it, you know.
Yeah.
So like just hearing it being played made it fucking awesome.
I was let's see, who was it? Oh, Wes. You know Wes Hosh, or I hope I'm saying his last name right. Yeah, he had posted something on Twitter the other day about like bands that had put out awesome records back to back, like, you know, Pantera's Cowboys and Vulgar Display of Power. And I was like, well, not to one up you, but I have a triplet right here, because I was like, you know, King Diamond put out Abigail, Them, and Conspiracy back to back to back within a fucking like 5-year period or something like that. And I was like, that those records are so solid, and they all came one after the other. And he was like, yeah, that makes sense.
That's good. Oh yeah.
Yeah, man.
My girlfriend's a huge King Diamond fan, so it helps like that, where it's like we got to deep dive and just goof off and listen. It's so weird where it's so easy to get discouraged when someone says, I don't want to listen to that, or I don't like that. Mm-hmm. But then I forget that like when you vibe on something with someone else that like no one really vibes on, or I shouldn't say no one, like I guess just generally in the mood, like someone just wants to put on something that's in the background, you know. They want to put on like lately what everyone's been putting on is like that retro wave music.
Oh yeah,
which is cool. Like we listen to it, but then it's just like you're talking over it. You're just hanging out. So then like there's times where like we were just like last night, my girlfriend and I were just putting records on and just random music while we're playing Ramen Fury. Mm-hmm. And it's just like when that connection hits of like, oh my gosh, this song's so cool, and we're like vibing on it for the same reasons, but for different reasons, and like that makes me forget about like when someone's just like, oh, you listen to that, change it, you know? Yeah,
that's such a weird thing that I really can't stress enough that like I get it that not everything's for everybody. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, there's things that I don't really care for that I don't want to hear, but I'm not gonna like shame somebody for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, there's been so many instances where like all of us being on tour, we're like, I've gained new music because of somebody playing something that I've never heard before, and I was like, yo, what is this? I want to listen to more of whatever this is because it's awesome. You know, I think because Scott for sure definitely got me more into Dissection. Like I listened to them before you guys, but he was always like selling me on them all the time. He's like, no, they're the best black metal band. They're the best black metal band. And sure enough, I would say they're the best Swedish black metal band. Probably not the best, but yeah.
Yeah, I
so,
love Dissection.
Man, yeah, that was like one of my favorite things about touring too, is like all the music that would get passed around between everybody. Just all the other bands and people just be like, hey, you should listen to this. Do you like this? You should check this out. Fucking, I was talking to Gunface recently, and I was like, hey man, you know, like you're responsible for getting me way more into Immolation, right? And he's like, oh yeah, I remember that. I was telling you to listen to this record. And I was like, yeah, fucking worked, buddy. I never stopped after that. So
here's a funny thing. I got into Immolation when we were tracking Hell Chose Me because Zach Oren had just worked with them. I don't think he tracked them. I think he just mixed them. And so that's the cool thing is when we go to a studio, whoever was just there, we get A-B'd against. And so Zach was A-B'ing our current mix as we were going with Majesty and Decay.
Damn.
And hearing that stuff in the studio, which is like set up to sound like the best.
Yeah.
It had like a passive kind of like absorption. It was kind of like I wasn't forced to listen to it. He was just I'm just sitting in the room and he's just like, I just got to A-B this real quick. I just want to make sure all the levels are good and even. And I was like, man, that record was so good. And then I went back afterwards and I was like, I have to go get that record. That record sounded amazing. And it's still my favorite record from him. But that's probably just because of the environment I was in and the imprint of hearing it so fucking clear and awesome and bombastic in that room. I was like, oh man, this is incredible.
That's another thing about music too, that, you know, people just have those records that stick with them for whatever reason because it reminds them of like a certain point in their life or a thing that they did that was so memorable that, you know, that memory's always going to be associated with that record usually. And because it kind of like, in a weird way, I forget who I was talking to about this, but you know, you listen to it and it almost kind of takes you back to that time in like a nostalgic way, which is why
it's the imprint.
Yeah, and I think that's why music is so important to a lot of people, especially in the metal community. You know, as much as a bad rap that a lot of us get, I think a lot of us also are just like nostalgic for stuff. You know, like the music, quote unquote, sounds angry, but I think there's more to it than that, personally.
Yeah. I know, like you're saying, I can always pinpoint stuff, moments in time because of a record. I'll put a record out and I'll remember like maybe who showed me it or what I was doing at the time when I first heard it.
Yep.
Like you were saying earlier, like back to the question of like records that changed it. I was in chemistry class with this guy who ended up picking up guitar, and his approach to guitar was immediately like mathematical, where he's just like, he was scales modes immediately, like from picking up the guitar to playing arpeggios. I was like, damn, that was quick. He was like, we jammed once, and he goes, I think you should check this band out because you might dig what's going on. And he gave me the record, and it was In Flames, The Just Erase. Excellent. And that was another thing. I was like, it was heavy, it was catchy, it was melodic. And the song he showed me was December Flower, like the first song. And then they have a guest guy, like Frederick something, that does a solo. And it's just this big tasteful thing. And he's not shredding or ripping. It's just every note he's hitting is just catchy. Like you can hum the solo after you hear it.
It's just adding that extra layer of like harmony and what's the word? I know what you mean, like that sound where it just so perfectly aligns with whatever they're playing and it's not overly pushy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to overcomplicate that.
Ripping. Yeah, I'm not ripping. He knows he can shred, but he's like, I just want to fit the song, you know?
Yeah. So what drew you into playing bass guitar? Because I know I know that's like a very, it's not like, so for me, when I look at a bass, I see it as not only an extension of guitars, but also of the drums. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can talk about rhythm section.
Yeah. So for me, when I see that, it's like you're almost kind of pulling double duty in a way, because you have to keep up with the drums and the guitars. Not that the other instruments don't also have to keep up with that stuff, but bass is such a forceful instrument. There's such a good crop of bands that are using bass as the forefront of their music nowadays, which is cool, instead of like guitars and everything else. And
there's a band right now that's just 2 bassists and a drummer.
What band is that?
I'll send you the link. I don't remember what the name is.
Okay.
Someone sent me the video. I was like, okay.
No, it's actually very, very simple how I got into it, and it makes complete sense. I joined a concert and marching band in middle school, and I wanted to play saxophone, but my parents couldn't afford the rental, or even much less, like, I should say, we couldn't afford to buy one, much less rent one.
Yeah.
And so I went back to school, and I asked the teachers, like, look, it's not that we're poor. It was just like, we just can't afford it. Do you have any instruments lying around that I could play? And he's like, we have trombones. And I was like, oh, sick. And so I got issued a loaner trombone. I started playing trombone, and that's in the bass clef, family, in the brass section, if you will. And then fast forward maybe like a month or two later, not even a month, I don't know the time frame, but like I was picking up the trombone pretty quickly, and he goes, you know what we really need? And I was tiny, you know how tall I am. I'm a small guy.
I think me and you are like
smaller
same
than
height.
Middle school. Yeah, I was smaller in middle school. He's like, what we really need is a tuba player, because we don't have one. And it's still the same, it's just a bigger mouthpiece. So then he gave me a baritone book and a baritone and the tuba book. And so then I took the baritone home to practice tuba music on, but I also practiced baritone. And then I was marching and concert band for the next 2.5 years in middle school playing tuba.
Damn.
Yeah.
So then when I went into high school, someone else wanted to be the tuba player. It's like, I'm the tuba player. I'm like, fucking, you can have it, man. That thing is huge. So I went to baritone because there's enough trombone players. And then a friend of mine found a guitar in his grandpa's attic or something, or just at his house or something. Like the total cliche. I found a guitar. I want to play guitar. And then our other buddy that I was hanging out with was like, well, I'm going to play guitar too. And he played saxophone. So it's funny. The first guy played trumpet, and the other guy played saxophone. They're both playing guitar. And I wanted to play drums, but again, I couldn't afford it,
Yeah.
My parents couldn't afford it. And a friend left his bass at their house that was like a neighbor friend of ours. And I went over there, and they're like, hey, so-and-so is never here. And I was like, okay, so? Like, well, I mean, baritone, tuba, trombone, bass, they're all in the same family. Like, why don't you jam? And I picked it up and could play it. Like, it made sense. So it stuck. Like, it wasn't much different. The only difference was, like, instead of me playing either fingerings or positions on an instrument, all the notes are laid out right there in front of me, and I just had to put my fingers on it, So it was really easy to pick up, and a jump starter pack at Guitar Center wasn't that, bank breaking. So my parents backed it, and they got me a bass. So
you've always kind of wanted to play music from even a young age.
I think it started with middle school, where they were like, you have an elective. Here's a list of elective classes you can pick from. Mm-hmm. I was like, I get to pick what I want to learn. And then, I don't know why music stuck out. It just did.
Interesting. So before that, you never really had any inkling, and just kind of like stuck out, and you were like, yeah, let's fucking do that.
Yeah, I think the only introduction I had was maybe a tape player and a box of tapes my mom had. And I just listened to the music and then marked the tapes that I liked and just listened to those until I was in a band. And then I really got into it.
So now where does the crossover come between playing bass and heavy metal, to where you're like, oh shit, I can play this now?
I think it's just like my growing with my friends. We were, like I said, we were shaped by what we heard on the radio. So there's a lot of punk and grunge.
Yep.
And I think once we started playing and getting better at our instruments, I don't know if it's a case for everybody, but for us, for sure, what ended up happening is as we started getting better at writing, as we started getting better at playing, we just wanted everything to sound heavier and faster. We wanted to play faster stuff, and that's I think what ended up happening. We started seeking out heavier music.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point I was trying to make earlier. Is that bass is if it's played right, it is the heaviest instrument in the whole fucking lot. I mean, if you use it to its strengths, man, just that fucking rumble. I was listening to Judas Priest, Painkiller, the record.
Yeah.
Man, the bass on that fucking record is monstrous. Like, if you really listen to it.
Those drums are even fucking just huge.
Yeah.
Scott Travis.
Just everything is just thundering at you. And, like, you know, that was the first time in a long time that I listened to something. I was like, damn, man, you can, like, really hear the fucking bass on this record. And I don't think a lot of bands do that anymore. You know, it always somehow gets buried in the mix, or it, you know, it mimics whatever the guitar is playing to make the guitars sound heavier, not the bass itself. But I think it's kind of par for the course.
I've heard countless interviews and records and stuff where, like, they tell the guy, play back, you know, play less, and then or they bury it. Like, the biggest example with Back to Death, Steve DiGiorgio was doing all this crazy stuff, and they fucking buried his bass stuff. And then with the reissues, they have just drum and bass, and they turn up the bass, and you're just like, whoa, the guy is fucking crazy. He's doing all this weird shit. It's awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if you have such a talented musician like that in the band, like, why would you want to bury that?
I think the two bands that really emphasized how sick bass was and didn't bury it were Pantera and Rage Against the Machine.
So if you listen to records nowadays, they layer and layer and layer everything.
Yep.
So if you have two guitars in the band, when it comes time when you hear a harmony going, when the guitar harmonies happening, on the record you'll hear another guitar, like a good rhythm guitar still chugging away.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing those Rage and Pantera records where on record the guitar will cut out, so that like when the solo's ripping, especially with Diamond, there's only one guitar player. They'll have it where you hear just the guitar soloing and just bass behind it.
Yeah, and I think that's
Rage does that too.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've listened to Rage Against the Machine, so I can't speak too much to like hearing that. But they
don't do it in every song. They'll still layer rhythm guitars in a lot of songs, but it's just cool to hear it every once in a while. It's like, even on record, they'll like, this is what it's going to sound like live.
Yeah, because I think that was a big thing with Pantera is, you know, they knew they only had one guitar player, so they're not going to sit here and like pull the wool over people's eyes like, oh yeah, we got like, you know, 4 guitar tracks on this song. Not that he didn't do that occasionally, but
yeah, he did.
Yeah. So,
but it's still cool to hear it every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you're gonna make a song sound the way it sounds in your head, you gotta like embellish it a little bit in the studio, because you know, live it's always gonna sound different no matter what.
Yeah, but nowadays bands are even doing that live. They just tracks upon tracks upon tracks.
Don't even get me started on that, man. I've seen.
Let's not go on a talk shit spree yet.
Here's the thing: I'm not gonna talk. Actually, I vaguely have talked shit on this band on here, but like I've seen 2 bands fairly recently, like within the past 6 months, to where they're on stage, their music's playing, but they're not playing anything on their guitars, like they're just mock playing it.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, how is nobody giving a shit about this? It's so disingenuous. And like I've even bitched about it on Reddit, you know, to people that love this band, or not even like people that love the band, but I've been like, this band's fake. Like, they don't actually play their instruments live. And they're like, who cares? They put on a good show. And I'm like, all right, that's fine.
If that's what you get out of it, I won't shit on it. Then.
Yeah.
But I had an experience where I went to go watch a band. I was like, I remember seeing them before, and they were pretty good. And then seeing them now, I was like, is it that he can't, or is it that he doesn't want to? Like the solo kicks in. I'm watching him like, that's interesting. He's playing the rhythm.
Wow.
I was like, and I'm looking at like he's the only guitar player, so I'm like, why is he not even attempting the solo? Interesting.
Yeah, I guess foregoing a whole guitar part is kind of, you would recognize that immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. So, okay, so oh yeah, one thing I did want to mention, every time that like I would hang out with you, one thing you were always very good about, and I'm sure you still do this, you practice a whole lot. Like you would literally be like, "Hey man, no, I got to practice for a little bit. You go do something else." And I think that's something people, obviously, musicians practice, but witnessing it is one thing and hearing about it is another. But I think me always, hanging out with you and seeing you actually practice or hear it, I was like, damn, man, Fred just he goes at it.
I'm not like some incredible, I'm not shredding, but I have to know my parts. I gotta know my stuff. So, yeah.
Well, even then, like, because I remember, if I'm not mistaken, like, I had asked you one time, I was like, so do you, like, learn anything new? Like, what do you try to do when you practice? And you're like, I don't know, just kind of, like, play songs and stuff. I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. That's what I do when I play guitar. Yeah, I thought there was, like, magic to it, you being in a band and everything.
With bass, it's definitely past that point. I keep practicing technique and theory, but with guitar, I just want to riff. And so I'll probably get to that point where it's like, okay, I'm all riffed out. I need to come up. I need to progress. But yeah, I've just someone will say a record, mm-hmm. and then I'll go, that's a sick record. And then I go put it on, and I'm like, that's a sick song. That's a sick riff. And then I immediately start learning. And then I start trying, like, I call it adding it to my arsenal. Yeah. It's like I want to soak up as many riffs and patterns as I can, so that when I go to write, that's already in my bank. And then I have like this map where I can just like start coming out with stuff. It's harder to come up with stuff if it's empty, and it's also, I don't want to be writing the same stuff. If I didn't do that, I would probably still be writing riffs that I was writing when I first joined the band, mm-hmm. or bass parts that would just be just uninspired. So.
But that's good. I mean, you're consciously putting that effort into being a better musician and a better writer. Because I think, or at least in my opinion, there's got to be a point where, like, you've probably hit that wall a time or two where you're like, fuck, I don't know what to write. Like, where is this going to come from? Or have you been, like, usually pretty inspired to keep writing new stuff?
It's going to sound really weird. I don't know if the guys are going to hear this. I hit that wall on this record for bass when I was kind of like, all the pre-production stuff was coming in. We never really jammed out any of these songs. So it's kind of like, here's a done song. Okay. And then I'm starting to learn it. I have to learn it by ear. And so then I'm like trying to juggle stuff that's keeping me interested with what I'm practicing and what I'm doing. Then I go back and work on the record. I'm like, I don't really find any fun stuff I couldn't find anything I could sink my teeth into, so I could say. Mm-hmm. And, but I learned it, I practiced it, I figured out the songs as well as I could, knowing like at least I could track and track my stuff in a timely manner. And then I get to the studio and it's drums and rhythm guitar only at that point. And they were kind of behind, and I was supposed to show up in melodies, like leads and melodies were supposed to be done. Yeah. But they weren't that done yet. So I was like, oh, cool, that gives me time to practice. I'm away from the home. I have no distractions. I have no excuse but to practice. And so I go, give me what you have. And then listening to the pre-production stuff of just bare rhythms and those drums, it was like night and day. I was like, oh my gosh, this stuff sounds so incredible now. I don't know what it was leading up to like 9 months leading up to this point where I was kind of like, okay, I guess these songs are okay, to like, whoa, where did this stuff come from? And it's the same thing, but it just sounded better because it was obviously tracked in a professional studio. And Jason is an amazing guitar player and producer that he made little tiny changes that doesn't like to like the average listener. You'd be like, sounds the same. It's like maybe a note is played just slightly different. Maybe it's just, you just slid into it. There's trims that were thrown in, bends and pick squeals, and then just notes were just moved here and there just to make it sound that they just pop more in the ear. And I just dove right in. 6 days straight while they were finishing of just practicing and rewriting all my bass lines And I came up with better stuff in those 6 days than I did those 9 months leading up to it.
Wow. Holy shit.
Yeah, it was really, really weird. I was like, so like you're saying, like, yeah, I had a funk when I was uninspired and nothing was coming. All of a sudden, it was just like, bam, there's a fire.
So was this also during that time that you guys did that EP as well?
The EP was a song that we were working on for the record.
Okay.
Over the touring cycle of this last record. So what the EP idea came was like, okay, we're gonna have this much time off. We need to put something out for Halloween because we're a Halloween band, you know. Oh, yeah. Our old label did that to us, kind of like, you know, Halloween bundles, and we were always like the forefront of it. But it came about where we're like, we wanted to make some money while we were not on tour to keep us at home writing and practicing.
Yeah. And
that was the idea. It was like, let's put an EP out with a bunch of fresh merch just for the EP. And Nuclear Blast was all about it. But they were like, for the time frame, it has to come out for Christmas because they want this. The special shtick was we're releasing the EP on tape, which we haven't released anything on tape. And there's like some tape resurgence. And someone was telling me that they actually sound better now than they did before. So I want to listen to the tape version on someone's, you know, tape stereo system if they still have one. But that's what it was like, let's tease everybody with, you know, when you say we got an album coming out,
yeah,
they want the generic answer is release something now. And that's what we did. We're like, hey, we're at home, we're working on our record. We'll keep you posted. Hey, release something now. Okay, fine. Here's an EP with 4 tracks on it right now.
And that's smart. That's very, very smart. I think I love when bands do that. I think I brought this up so many times on the podcast, but I think the band that has that mastered right now is Aborted. They put out an EP, then they put out a record, then they put out an EP, and then they put out a record, and everything they put out is fucking phenomenal. It's like they just don't stop. So I
just saw them live recently, and they were incredible.
I feel like the only time I got to see them is when we were on tour and we played Rock and Shock back in like, that must have been 2009 or 2010, and they played. I remember it being okay, but I was so far away I couldn't like fully hear them. But I must have seen them some other time. I'm fucking blanking though.
I don't know. I know we played with them a lot in Europe because of the festival circuit. But no, that's a great model. I love that. I remember someone was complaining like, oh, EPs, why can't they just put out a whole record? I was like, no. I remember shit up. Anthrax did that. They put out all these EPs and special editions that's like, oh, I want to hear that one release that has a song that was probably like a B-side on a record. And eventually they released Attack of the Killer Bees. I was like, oh, sick. But
I love it personally because I think it's a good idea and it holds people over to kind of wait and get hyped up for that record, you know, because people are so quick to like move on to the next thing or forget about a band if they don't put something out in, you know, a year's time. And EPs are a great way to kind of satiate that.
I just remember iPods? Of course. I just did a purge on my iPod because I was like, you know what? I don't need all these records on this thing anymore because I have Google Play. Mm-hmm. And I found all these EPs on there that the streaming services don't have.
Yeah.
And I was kind of bummed. I was like, oh, well, at least I have a reason to keep this stuff. But it just blew my mind. I'm like, man, these are things I'm going to listen to. I wish it was available, but then it kind of makes sense. It's like they were probably like very special or released on some unknown label or something.
Yep. Yeah, I have a couple things like that myself because I switched over to Spotify recently, and it's kind of the same thing where there's even some records that aren't even in a band's full discography, like Cradle of Filth, for instance. Tool, yeah.
Oh, I have the stuff you gave me. You gave me like a huge Cradle of Filth dump.
Yeah.
And the stuff I saved were like, I know they don't have.
Yeah. So on Spotify, they have literally every Cradle of Filth record except for my favorite one.
Which was that?
Damnation in a Day. That's the only record that's not on there. And I'm like, how the fuck? So, and same thing, like the early Cro-Mag stuff isn't on there. Yeah. like
Tool. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
My iPod has all the Tool records on there.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I get that artists want to get paid for music, and I absolutely think they should.
That's what Tool's doing. That's who owns the music.
Yes. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. But that was kind of what I was getting to as well, is like the record companies sometimes will hold out on Spotify or whatever streaming service until they get X amount of dollars, and then they're like, okay, yeah, now you can have whoever's discography or our catalog or whatever.
I got a fun fact for you.
Okay.
So, Dead in My Arms, that was released on this label called The City is Burning.
Yes.
Sony bought out all these labels, basically, and they acquired The City is Burning.
Oh, shit.
So for us to do any kind of re-release or special edition, it's going to be fucking tough, because the amount of units that thing would push probably is so negligible, or like not even a thing for them. So like they have it, they're probably getting the earnings from people playing it, which is fine by them because they don't have to do anything with it.
Yeah. But
for us to approach them to be like, hey, this is our stuff and we could generate you guys some money, they'd be like, yeah, but you know, they're in the business of making millions, and we'd be like, we'd generate them like thousands maybe. They don't care. It's like, it's not worth it. It's too much effort to, you know, assign somebody to go do that when you can assign them some bigger artist, you know?
Yeah, because they already shelled out their money to buy the record company in the first place.
Yeah.
Man, that's such a...
Or acquired it, yeah. So it's just funny. Yeah. It's like, oh, cool. Technically, that's on a major label. But that means nothing's going to happen with it.
I mean, hey, that's a good way to look at it, at least. It's under a major label now.
It's still alive. That's another way. It's like, it's preserved. Like, what was one of our favorite record labels? I think Abacus got bought out by Century Media, and Century Media not just got bought out, but their whole catalog was bought out by someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I forget who they got bought out by, but I don't know. I mean, you know, the one that I'm still surprised at is Metal Blade, like how long they've been going, and they haven't really sold out to anybody. I mean,
and we still see those guys at shows, which speaks volumes of how much they're still just music fans. We still see Stigl and Faley at shows. I remember you met Faley at Yuma.
Yeah, dude.
Remember that show?
Oh man.
And we were bugging him about BT Bam signing to Metal Blade, and he wouldn't confirm nor deny.
Because we were all hanging out back and we were drinking gin
and tonics.
And I think Tim from As I Lay Dying was there. That dude Justin, their merch guy, I think he was there. Yeah, that was a good night. I think I got a little toasty. We went and saw Jackass 3D that day.
Yeah, we did at that weird small theater. Yeah. But we just played a show like last month. We jumped on the Chaos and Carnage tour for 2 shows, and it was Dying Fetus and Whitechapel.
Yeah.
And Revocation. And they showed up. And it was cool, like, to just, hey, what's up? And he's like, hey, you guys are still raging, sick. And it wasn't like business. We were just shooting the shit, just talking about music and stuff. And it was cool. Like, it's just satisfying. Now it's like, they're metalheads, and they still like going to shows, and they still like interacting with musicians, and they just chat, and they like talking and hanging out and hearing stuff, you know?
I think that's the way it should be. You know, funny enough too, like because I'm on Metal Blade's like press list for when shit comes out, and
nice.
Slagle was doing his book, and I was like, hey, what are the odds of getting Slagle on the podcast? And the PR lady was like, I mean, he might, but he's really, really busy. And I was like, man, I kind of met him once. Does that count for anything? And she's like, no, I'm sorry.
That's funny. Yeah.
But yeah, I love
Scott and I went to go see Dahlia. They were doing that Unhallowed tour.
Oh yeah.
And they played like this dive in like East LA, and Faley was there, and we laughed because it's just like it's like this must have been was like in the 80s, like this dive bar with broken toilets and no lights. And he's probably like, I thought I was over this shit, you know.
Yeah.
But he's just hanging out. He was stoked to see his boys, you know.
I mean, that's how it's got to be, though. You know, you keep your ear to the ground, you get better shit. You know, you're not getting it through a secondhand party. Like, you're there listening to these bands or supporting the bands that, you you've been working with already for decades. And I think that's probably why that record label is held in such high esteem.
Mm-hmm. I think the people that work there literally enjoy working there. Same with Nuclear Blast. Every time we go to the offices for anything, they're all excited. They also have smiles on their faces, and they're all plugging away, working, and it's incredible. And they're excited to see us. When we are at our old label, when we used to go there, it looked like they were downtrodden and not happy to be there, and it was just a 9 to 5 until they could get a better job somewhere else. Oof. It was depressing, and it made us quickly realize, like, oh man, like we need to get out of here.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into that, but those V years were there were some struggles, man.
Yeah, fuck. I mean, they killed Dead to Fall.
Yeah, I had actually talked to John about that a little bit.
That's the podcast I want to listen to. I like hearing the stuff that we're not privy to. You know,
he went so fucking in depth with their final record, Are You Serious? Because it was celebrating an anniversary when I had him on. It was crazy. It was like one of the most in-depth things I've ever gotten from anybody. And I was like, shit, this is perfect. I wish everybody could do this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, they ruined so many bands. I mean, Day to Remember, Between the Bear to Me, Dark Tower, fucked all those bands.
Yeah, but Between came out alive.
Sure. And no, they're all
alive.
Yeah.
Darkest Hour was definitely wounded, though. They had their best years at the worst place, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really big minefield is like record companies. And, you know, the thing that you've seen kind of start trending within the past couple of years is bands foregoing record labels altogether and doing the crowdfunding thing. You know, Protest the Hero did it successfully. Misery Signals did it.
You want to talk about like a good model? This is what Protested that I was in love with, and I signed up for immediately. Mm-hmm. They did an app where it was just, all right, we're putting a record out, but this is how it's getting put out. A song at a time, 12 songs, 1 song a month. But you have to be subscribed to our app. And it was a one-time purchase. You know, you could pay probably like a renewal fee every month so that you get the next song. But I just bought the record outright. And it was cool because it was dedicated artwork for each song and then the lyrics. And then so every month it's like, oh, a new Protest song, sick. And I get to read the lyrics immediately while looking at this cool artwork for that specific song.
Damn, that is really cool.
Yeah. That was that was their way of self-releasing it, because they did the crowdfunding thing, and whoever was running it took the money. How shitty is that?
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so they had a record and what do you call them, perks to fulfill.
Yeah.
While fighting for their money.
Whoa! And this when they raised like that $100,000?
Yeah, that was that long time ago. Oh. So they did the app. The app thing was afterwards. That was the record. What, like after that, or 2 records after?
Man, that sucks. You know who that happened to recently? Derek Kurswell. He did that band. He's that band Downpour that he's in with Brian from Shadows Fall. They put out a record, did a whole crowdfunding thing, and then the same thing happened. Like that whole company just took off with everybody's money and left these bands to just like fulfill the orders on their own. And they got fucked basically. And I was like, dude, that sucks, because they wanted to put out that record so bad. It got put out, but I mean, you know, a lot.
But
of
after
people,
all that headache,
yeah, it's like why he was already like telling me, you know, it's like, man, we're all putting our own money into this, and it's like, why keep making music if all this shit happens? And I'm like, yeah,
it is very discouraging. Oh yeah.
So with not to get back into formalities here.
Oh, it's so fun. I understand.
But you know, with speaking of making records, you know, you talked a little bit about making this new record. You said you had 9 months to kind of do everything.
Well, it's kind of hard to say that. I don't know how many songs we had when we hit the end of the summer tour mark. Mm-hmm. Let's say we had 3 songs plus maybe 3 or 4 working structures, you know? And then we had let's say September to January mapped out of we're at home. Mm-hmm. That's what we had. Nothing. We had 1 show planned, which was we were opening up for Bleeding Through in December, which is kind of like, that's all we have. And then we had the EP idea, which that song we already, I think October, I'm like in the middle of painting my house and then taking breaks and tracking my parts and then sending it off. So I self-track that stuff in my own house.
Nice.
But like the idea was like talking about like, what are we going to do? Should we go somewhere? Should we track it ourselves? Jordan tracked himself. Sean wrote the drums. Scott went to who we went to for this last record, McKinney, at his studio in like Long Beach, somewhere up there, Huntington Beach or Long Beach. And so we like pieced it together and sent it off to Sukoff, and he mixed and mastered it. And but we had, I think, 4 to 5 more songs to write.
Gotcha. To
finish. Yeah. So let's say we had 3 songs done, you know?
Mm-hmm. And so after that point in time, like, because I know, at least when I was around you guys, like, everybody would kind of write on their own. Are you guys still doing that, where everybody's writing on their own and then you just send things off to each other?
Yeah, before, I think up until I Feel Nothing, we would do the practice space thing.
Yeah.
But we'd still tab out stuff and track stuff. Now, I think Die Without Hope was the last time we jammed out anything as a band before going to the studio. And then this time we just it was kind of like on your honor. Like, you have to practice on your own and go. And so that's what it was. Everyone was in their own place sending stuff to each other.
So I know, especially with Die Without Hope, you guys have like really, I don't want to say changed your sound, but you've added to your sound, evolved.
Yeah.
And it seems like based off this first track, this record's going to be no different. So what are some things that you guys like really tried for to push that's going to be different that people might not expect?
The symphonic element, we are definitely pushing that more. Like, nice. Before, we always had keys since day one. You could hear it on Dead of My Arms. If someone goes, they never had it yet, then it's there in Dead of My Arms. There's keyboard in there. Mm-hmm. But we have horns and strings going on. Of course, they're not live. Like, we didn't have the money to like hire somebody to come in and track that stuff. We just did it. We went full blown, embraced like what's it called? I'm forgetting. I'm blanking on the program. They're a big company. Native Instruments.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We got there like horror movie, like we have all the stuff to basically add to the songs, because like 2 of my favorite bands had that stuff. Chimera, they had a dedicated guy doing all that like background stuff on the record. So if you listen to the records, there's like ambient stuff going on that helps fill out the music. In Flames has that too. There's a lot of electronic effects and symphonic stuff in the background of the music that just adds this nice little, like, that helps emphasize the mood of the song.
Yeah.
And so it's not just riffs anymore. We have to it's kind of like approaching like a movie soundtrack, where like we want to fill it out and make the songs fuller. So there's strings and horn sections now.
So do you guys like write all that stuff around the music that's already there, like use that to fill in the pieces, or do you occasionally write around like the symphonic elements?
I don't know. That's something for Jordan and Sean to ask, because they're the ones deep diving into that stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just riffs.
Okay. Yeah,
it's just riffs.
I've been wanting to get both of them on the podcast. I was trying to get all you guys at one point. That'd be cool as shit. But yeah, because I would imagine when you're trying to figure out how to fit these pieces in, and adding those extra layers and elements, I would feel like that it would maybe spark an idea sometimes, where you'd hear like that symphonic thing and be like, oh shit, what if I wrote this instead? But what if the song's already done? You can't really go back and change it, right?
Yeah. The thing I always ran into was where I track. I'm before vocals normally, and I'd always be afraid if like I'm doing too much, and I would interfere, or the vocals would interfere with something I'm doing, or I'd accidentally go over stuff.
And then with this time, Jason had Scott sending him vocals from another studio. Mm-hmm. And so there was times where I'm like, can we listen to this section? Because I want to do something crazy. And it's like, listen how full, there's too much going on. All right, I'll lay back. And then we play, it's like, oh, it's so open. I'm fucking going to let it rip. So.
Yeah, that's a good conscious decision, though, to like know and to let the song kind of serve itself, and then you adding your extra little bits to it to like really fill it out. Which I think, I mean, you guys have been playing so long together now, like you got to have like a good flow with everything, right?
Yeah, I found something that's kind of funny where they're like, they don't really say anything to me about what they expect from me, I guess. Mm-hmm. I think Scott just is confident that I'm going to go in, I'm going to, you know, do my stuff in a timely manner. It's just cool, like, to get a text or just be hanging out and they'll say like, dude, what you did in this part is sick. And I'm like, and then I get like a chill. I'm like, that's cool, like positive reinforcement, but it's still like, to impress the guys that I have to see every day it's a really, really amazing feeling. Like we've been together this long, and just to hear like that positive feedback, I still feel like that gratification of like, oh, cool, they're still happy. They're happy with what I did. That's awesome.
Which is how it should be. I mean, obviously you guys are all friends and you don't want to like let them down, but when your friends like give you that gratification, it feels good. I mean, because you're all working very hard to make this piece of art. And, I couldn't imagine them being like, dude, that's shit. Why would you do that? Fucking suck. Like, that's
well, yeah.
Not that anybody would, but
there's times where we look back on stuff and I'm like, I really don't like this. And someone's like, what the fuck? Why didn't you say something then? It's like, well, so much time has passed on, maybe I didn't care at that moment in time, or it wasn't that bad, but it's like Heartless. Heartless, there's one riff in Heartless that ruins the song for me. And I feel bad that like, whenever we talk about it, I think Corey and I are the biggest guys who are like, fuck, no, maybe not Corey. I think he's kind of defensive about it too. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, I hate that riff. Like that riff ruins the song for me. At the time, I don't think it did. But after hearing it over and over again, I'm like, man. And I think it hurts, when like, it's like, I want to play the song. Yeah, but that riff sucks. And it's like, what the fuck,
Yeah, I think that was that was the hardest thing about like trying to get you guys to talk about Disease and the Poison, because it seems like none of you guys like that record, and because it was so rushed and it didn't seem like anybody really wanted to talk about like how it got made, and you just wanted to move on, be like, no, who cares? And
I don't know. So
it's the history of it.
Everyone has such a bad experience. Let me see if I can do the best. Like, how do I encapsulate that record? Ryan and I just joined the band. Yeah. So Ryan drove down from Santa Maria and was living with Sean at Sean's mom's and sister's house in like northern Corona. And then I was driving back and forth because I think I just finished my last, like a semester of college. And I was still working, I think, but I was driving back and forth from San Diego to northern Corona. To not only were we learning all the songs that they played live from Dead in My Arms, mm-hmm. but then we were supposed to be writing. So Corey, Sean, Ryan were writing riffs, and Scott was there. He always is doing his like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Like kind of like helping with arrangements and stuff.
Yeah.
And this was the days before. Well, we had Tablet and we had a whiteboard, and on the whiteboard we're writing. We'd come up with these nicknames for the riffs, and we were just writing riffs and then just compiling them, and then we'd have the structure written out. And I wish I had a picture of the whiteboard. If I do, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It's just the riff. We'd come up with a name that would make you remember that's the riff we got to play at that section. And that's what the writing sessions were. We're just writing, adding riffs to these structures, and we had working titles, and I remember like just stupid names. We had like Hop Trip was like a riff, and that made you realize like, oh, it's a triplet, but it's got this hoppy feel to it. So you'd remember the riff that way. And we had finished writing before we had to leave for 2 tours. And it was the With Blood Comes Cleansing, Different Breed of Killer tour.
Yeah. And
then we had a few dates after the end of that tour to finish the East Coast to get to Hadley, Massachusetts, to track with Zeus.
And what I remember was I remember writing and finishing my parts and remembering the structures. We tabbed them out so the songs were written, and then we left. And I only practiced the songs that we played live on that run, because we played songs like, this is what's going to come out, this is what we're going to track. And then getting to the studio going like, oh, fuck, I got to practice. So I had my shitty old, like, I forget what the laptop was. It was some no-name brand laptop. I'd have headphones and just learn watch the tabs and practice while we were tracking in Hadley. And the thing that I think Sean and everyone else gets mad, the record's too slow. Yeah. Zeus did this thing where he would round down to the nearest 5 BPM. We tracked, we set up the drums. Drums were going to go first. So there was rhythm guitars tracking for the sake of the structure. He did the thing where it was scratch tracks. So they would run through the song and they had these scratch tracks, and then he would label it. And it's like, this is what this song is going to be. And then he would round down 5 BPM to the nearest 5. So if it was at like 126, it was 125. Damn. If it was, it was a weird thing to do.
Yeah, because
they all hate that.
I think I mentioned that or asked you guys that. I was like, don't you guys play these songs faster live? And Corey and everybody's like, yeah, definitely.
But then here's the reason I think it worked. It made the songs more easily digestible. If we played them at those speeds, it's just like Peter reading the alphabet. Ah! And I think that's why people love that record, is because the riffs are easier to digest because they're just slightly slower. They might be agonizingly slower to us because we were playing them so fast.
Yeah.
But I listened to that record. Like, Brittany I shouldn't say was. She's still a huge fan. She'll put that. It'll come up in the mix, and I'm like, oh, I totally forgot about that riff. That riff was sick. And it's like, it doesn't hurt me. It doesn't. I don't feel some sort of pain. I'm like, oh, I gotta play so slow.
Yeah.
Zeus was going through stuff. I mean, like, who isn't? In life, like, some point in time, so I guess that kind of didn't help. He was definitely our first professional engineer experience. So we were hoping to like be taken under and like shown all these ropes, but really it was just kind of like, I remember me tracking was just track, and then he would give me, I don't remember any specific notes of what I was doing or not. I remember pissing him off because I forgot to change the battery in my bass. Oops. And he's like, why is the signal decaying during this song? And then it's even worse in this song. And then all of a sudden it's gone in the last song. And he goes, I was like, I forgot to change the battery. He's like, and he got mad. He's like, what the fuck? You guys are supposed to be professional and all this stuff. And I'm like,
damn.
Yeah, but we're like new, we're fucking new. But luckily, like, after all was said and done, he goes back. He's like, we only have to retrack the last song. Like, I can still say this stuff. I just boost the signal. It's totally fine. Studio magic. So it was just funny to see that moment of like, what the fuck? All right, we're fine. Nah, it's no big deal. It's fine. It's like, all right, cool. So it's not like I didn't lose a day. I lost maybe like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours of our time. I had to go back and retrack a few riffs,
But it seems like it was just an incredibly rushed album, though, right?
I don't think so. I mean, we were rushed in the writing, but like we talked about earlier, the riffs were coming.
Yeah.
What I do notice is that since if you take Hand in Hand, Ryan and I are learning all the songs, their material, that stuff bled into this record. So a lot of the elements from Dead in My Arms still made it into Diseased. And there's one riff that I always laugh at because it's on there like 3 times. It's like Mark Morton calls it riff farming, where you play a riff and then you try to farm out all the different ways to play it.
Yeah.
That happened. We came up with like 3 different ways of playing this one riff, and it ended up on the record in 3 different songs.
That's fucking hilarious. Because like me, when I do that shit, when I play guitar, I'm like, well, it could just be the same riff played different ways in the same song. But I never thought about splitting it up and putting it in different songs, even though it's still the same cool riff. I like that idea.
Yeah. We didn't do it consciously. We were just so ingrained in, let's practice the set. All right, now let's go back to writing and let's practice the songs that we already wrote. And that happened, And a lot of my favorite riffs are on that. I guess I wouldn't say rushed, but we were on a time crunch, and we met it. but it would have been nice to at least, have some time before we went straight to tracking,
Yeah.
And it would have been, maybe we should have asserted ourselves more in the studio, but we didn't know, because we were young.
Sure.
And it was our first, we asserted ourselves more with Zach, and Zach was definitely more vocal about stuff. And so that's like a different experience. And he went home every day. He's like, I'll spend some time editing every time I come in the morning. But he would just go home with the work and edit at home and come back, and we'd go right back to tracking. So it was a different experience. I wouldn't say it was, like, from my view, tracking wasn't bad. Like, Zeus was on point, and we got the work done. The end result maybe isn't what we wanted. He did clean it up too much. Maybe that's another reason why people love it, because it's not some nitty-gritty recording. It's not aggressive. It's he cleaned up, like, in the whole grand scheme of the catalog, maybe it's not our favorite record, but it's I don't think the whole experience was a fucking nightmare.
That's good. Yeah,
like everyone else makes it out to be.
I mean, you guys have progressed so much since then, like musician wise, that it's kind of hard to not look back on those records and be like, well, we're so much better now, because it's a fact. Like, you guys are so much better now. So I mean, like, looking at that situation where you had that record and you guys were so young to where you are now, like, what are some things now looking back that it's all done where you're like, oh shit, that was so much easier this time around?
I always get nervous going in. I'm like, can I nail my parts? Can I nail my parts? Because I'm going to be under this microscope. But tracking itself, my playing, I'm actually surprised at how efficient I can be. And listening back to the recordings, I feel at times I am easy to balk to the engineer going like, I can work with this first, and I want to again assert myself. Like, no, let me play it. It's like engineers nowadays are very like, I'll just work with this. Like, no, like, I know I can. If you want a better take, I'll give you a fucking better take.
Yeah. Don't
just make it a good take, because I'll hear stuff. I'm like, how did that get passed?
Huh.
Or and at there's a couple parts where Sean's like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I'm like, I did, and it got cut.
Oh.
How did it get cut? So it's like, it's something as it's a bass slide isn't there, and I'm like, I tracked the bass slide. I know I did, because like, I remember doing it. Like, I have it in my pre-pro. I tracked the bass slide. I know I wouldn't have missed that. So I don't know, somewhere with you talking to Jason, it got cut,
Damn. That's pretty crazy. Because, I mean, you guys, that's the other thing is, like, I'm sure you guys listen to everything so fucking much that it's, at what point do you stop listening and trying to pick these things out and just let the record be finished?
Yeah. There was a point, I think it was like my second to last day there, where I was like, there's stuff I want to do here, but I'm running out of time. Let me just track and get out of here. But the other thing too was, people are sometimes a little too involved. And so while I'm doing something, and then the engineer decides, hey, I'm going to do this change. And he sends it off with the change. And then the fucking, like, the knee-jerk reaction, like, why'd you change this? This is a big mistake. You shouldn't be doing that. The reason that it was tracked this way is because it has to be this way. And then the phone call happens and everything comes to a halt. And then everything comes into question. It's like, what other changes have you made? It's like, it was just an idea, man. Like, hold on. Like, I can track both ways. It's fine. So that's another aspect of it, where it's like, I think this is the first time we were in the studio completely separate from each other too. Because when we tracked out our Slow Death, we were at an Airbnb down the street. This time it was like one member was at the studio at a time, and then Scott didn't even go. Well, Scott went at the beginning to discuss the songs, but then he went back. He tracked, like I said, he tracked in Long Beach.
Yeah, I mean, you guys all have like your own separate lives now, like, so I imagine like getting everybody in that same room is a lot harder to, especially when you're like making a record. And, with the way technology is, you kind of don't even have to.
Yeah.
But, so I guess one last thing, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We've been going over an hour.
How long do podcasts usually?
They're
usually an hour and a half, right?
Yeah, I try to go like an hour now because I realize, but don't get me wrong, I've definitely had people where I've talked for like 2.5 fucking hours, and that is also fun as shit. I just don't know how much time you have, so.
Yeah, I just have the rest of my cleaning, but the big stuff I already got out of the way, which is just which I'm checking on right now.
Yeah. So all right. Yeah. If we got a little bit more time, I'll chat your ear off some more.
I got 38 minutes before it's done drying.
All right. So you guys got a bunch of guest people on this record. You got Alyssa, obviously.
Save Us.
What was that?
No Light Shall Save Us.
The single that's out now.
In the music video as well.
Yeah. Holy shit, dude! You guys made a video in a desert, and it looks like a fucking alien planet. It's so cool.
It's awesome. Yeah.
So who, if I'm not mistaken, who is it? No, not Hans Grossman. Jesus.
Oh, we have Angel Vivaldi.
That's it. Yeah. Why did I say Hans Grossman? He's a drummer. It's not even a fucking.
Yeah, Necrophagist, Obscura, and I don't know what band he's in now.
Yeah. So you got Angel Vivaldi, and
Jason Sukoff. Again. He's 3 for 3.
Dude, Sukoff is a fucking monster at guitar.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite reasons going to the studio with him is because he speaks guitar like another language, like it's like a second language, and we've gone through many producers and they'll give you their ideas, but he's also an engineer where like since he speaks guitar, I don't need a guitar player in the room to tell me of any changes because Jason knows all those changes. He's heard them over and over again. He pinpoints it. He can immediately tell me what it is and show me what it is versus Corey was always the guy that was sitting behind me for all my bass tracking sessions to let me know of any changes. Cause we changed that. And we even found stuff where there's discrepancies. It's not a bad thing. It just happens where we would find out that either Ryan or Corey played something different from each other. And then it's he'd have to make a note. I got to change that. Then I have to play to one of those. So it's I'm playing right with one of the guitars. So then which one sounds better? And then we play that. More often than not, what I was playing was what's going to stay. But there was changes that sounds cool. Let me do that instead, Yeah. But with Jason, it was any changes right then and there, I can nail it. I can do it. And then sometimes I'm he'll be like, man, that sounds boring. This part needs fucking more bass. Let's do it. And then we fucking have these awesome brainstorming sessions where we're just goofing off and then we come up with cool shit. Where I'll be coming up with something or he'll be coming up with something or he has this barrage of ideas and I'll pick part of them I like that and I like that and like that. Watch this. Let me put it in this order. And then he's like, that's sick. And then we track it.
God, man, that's gotta be so cool to have that guy that's such a, encyclopedia of guitar to be there working with you and, adding stuff like that.
I see people complaining no, just let me do my thing. But I'm it's exciting. It makes tracking exciting where it's in the moment of check this out or just let's fuck around rather than just track the thing because then it gets boring. Then it's I just want to track and get out.
Have you heard obviously you've heard Kafarna, but have you heard his other joke?
Crotch Duster?
Yeah. Fucking Crotch Duster.
I think Jordan actually showed me Crotch Duster back in the day.
Man. Dude, Weatherford is responsible for showing me Crotch Duster. If I could fucking I would love to talk to Sukoff about that record so bad.
But you probably could. If you want, I could probably. He's going to be fucking all over the place. But sure. I can pitch you if you want to see if you can do a podcast with him.
Dude, if you could hook that up, I would.
He's done so many records. That's another reason I love going over there. It's just Charred Walls of the Damned. Yep. How sick was that?
Richard Christie.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yeah, he's he's one of those guys that I think people don't really talk about enough in metal. It's people in the know him, but I think the general outside metal world have no fucking clue, and I think they're really missing out.
He's done so many incredible records. Job for a Cowboy, Black Dahlia Murder, Trivium. He's responsible for Trivium being so huge.
Yep. Yeah, and he did he do the Anal Nathrak too?
No, that's the guy who Scott tracked with. That's Mick Kenny.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so that's funny that you mentioned that. Yeah, Mick Kenny,
guitar player in All Nakreth. I think, does he do the vocals too?
I think so, yeah.
So that's where Scott went and tracked. He tracked with him. I think it's like Bunker Studios, something like that.
Yeah, that band, goddamn. There's like
Speaking
a
of
monstrous
engineers,
wall of sound.
there was like two things. Corey was telling me how he was watching something where 311 record. They have like their own place, and they had all like those reel to reels that they tracked on. Not reel to reels, but whatever it is that they tracked on, like just above the ceiling of like on a shelf. And it's like, whoa. And just recently, Jamie King posted up a picture. Like he had like all these master CDs of everyone he tracked in like these bins, and he decided to organize them recently, and they're disintegrated.
Oh no.
Yeah, so this music was lost. He's like, fuck, if there's ever a time to back this stuff up to a hard drive, it's now.
So is that like what he's been doing? That's, oh man, I can imagine. He went
to organize the masters, only to realize that what he tracked them on, which is CD, is done. Like they just the weather fluctuations or whatever he had them stored in, just destroyed them. So yeah.
Man, I bet there's so much music out there like that we just don't know about. Or, I mean, also there was that fire that just happened too, where like 9 Inch Nails, Nirvana, all these masters are just gone now from that era. Never ever hear it again.
My favorite documentary is when they were talking about the Nevermind recording sessions, and Butch Vig is at the console, and he's got the master plugged in, and he can isolate all the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was so sick, where he's like, check this out. And it's like, just listen to Dave Grohl's vocals. It's like, whoa, it's so haunting and awesome.
I think, if I'm not, I could be wrong about this. I probably am. But I think he did I'm thinking of Tony Visconti. Never mind. There was something I was watching where they did that with David Bowie, where they isolated all his tracks, and you hear his stuff, and you're just like, holy shit! Like, how? And that, I love hearing that stuff more than a full record. Sometimes, like when you hear just those little isolated tracks of guitar, or drum, or bass, and it's like, whoa! When you really get to hear the piece of the puzzle, it kind of makes the whole thing that much more enjoyable.
That's why I love those Death reissues, because they have the demo sessions before they go to the studio, so you hear the songs when they're just jamming in the bedroom or whatever studio they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Then you obviously hear the record. Then they have the live, all the songs when they're ever played live. But then they have just like those isolated tracks of like, here's just drum and bass. Here's just the lead guitar takes, you know?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of Dissection reissues where they did that same thing. And you hear like all the demo songs, and man, that I like hearing some of that stuff, but then there's like points where it's like you can tell the song is so far off from the final product. It's like, I think I'll just go listen to the real song.
Yeah.
But it's cool though. I agree. It is cool hearing like the bare bones of it. And
it's like we were talking about Typo Negative the other day. It was like, imagine if we had to listen to this song as 12 minutes. Like that's how originally they jammed it. 12 minutes. Fuck.
So I've been getting back into playing guitar after not playing for like fucking 7 years probably. And the weird thing is I can catch on to stuff so much more easy now. I can't explain it. So I've been learning some of the new Dark Throne stuff. I don't know if you listened to it or not.
Yeah, I missed out. I want to watch them.
Oh, it's so good. So I've been learning like a lot of the new songs on the record, and the one that I haven't been able to stop playing is Hardship of the Scots, and it's like an 8-minute song. And I when I was like, 15 playing guitar, like there's no fucking way you'd catch me like trying to play something like that. And I feel like I get lost in it a lot of times when I'm sitting there concentrating on it, and it's just like it's got a nice groove to it. And next thing I know, that 8 minutes is done, and I'm like, well, shit, maybe I just want to play it again. So I've been fucking jamming on that constantly. It's fun. It's a catchy ass little riff. What do you like to practice to?
Well, Scott got in my head Kill. I've been trying to learn every riff on Kill, both guitars and bass.
It's pretty.
And then for me, I think just strictly on bass, I've been trying to learn like more just wild stuff. So Spawn of Possession, Necrophagist, and Beyond Creation.
Oh yeah,
and I want a fretless. I want a fretless bass really bad. So
I had Hugo on my podcast, their current bass player.
Yeah. All right. Was that something Martin set up?
No, actually, I just got in touch with him from what's his name, Malcolm from Inferi, his record label, because Hugo is in another band as well as Beyond Creation called Equipoise, and I just like reached out to be put on his PR list for whatever to get bands, and he was like, "Yeah, you want to talk to Hugo?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah, he's in Beyond Creation, of course I do." Yeah,
I don't know much about Hugo. I learned all the Forrest stuff.
Okay. Yeah, Forrest was a fucking madman too. That's the thing, is like that whole band has just had killer players in general. Man, that whole like tech death scene is blowing up, I think.
Yeah, it's still like a friend of mine is my friend Kevin. The guy I was in a thrash band with. Mm-hmm. He played guitar for 2 records for Pathology.
Oh, I think
he's the one that showed me Beyond Creation. Probably when we went out drinking or something.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Well, if you were at that party, I think at Johnny's apartment, he was probably there. I thought. Was it you and Melvin or just Melvin?
It's probably me and Melvin.
I took you guys to a party. I know Melvin was there because like everyone was like loving him. Yeah. But like I know Kevin and Johnny. I know Melvin met them. I'm pretty sure I brought you along because
was that the night that we stacked stuff on Corey?
No, I don't know if Corey was there.
Okay,
because it was all my friends. But anyways, yeah, it's like he was just like, you gotta listen to this band, and I was just like, what the heck? And it was cool, like the solo to solo, and just how like melodic it was in that, and they just drive that outro into your head.
Do you like actively like find bass players to not emulate, it's the wrong word, like bass players that inspire you, I guess, like even from like back when you were younger, like who are some that like stuck out to you?
It was Steve Bailey and Victor Wooten right off the bat.
Oh, nice.
A friend of mine was like, Bass Extremes, check this out, and I was like, what? But you know what, I walked away from that more than the crazy stuff was that they did a lot of cool melodic stuff and phrasing. It was just like when they weren't shredding and they were playing like the just normal passages, that's what I walked away from. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like it's just it's catchy and filling, and it was a good transition because then later on it was Jack Pastorius, and it's the same thing that he said. It's like, yeah, why can't bass play the melody? And I was like, oh, sweet. And then that's what I walked away with, was like, yeah, why can't I throw in harmonies and stuff in there? Or why can't I just play some melodic lines? There's like Die Without Hope. My bass line is kind of following Scott's vocal line, like in the middle of the chorus. Mm-hmm. Like I play the rhythm for the first half, and then I play like a little melody, counter melody to his vocals the second half.
Nice. Do you do that on the new record, or like what do you do to incorporate your melody?
Yeah. There's like a keyboard part that bridges the song, like the first 2/3 of the song to the last one. Mm-hmm. It's just like this interlude where it's like just piano by itself, and then we build back into it. But when everyone hits, like it's just like dun dun dun. I immediately I hit with everybody, and then I finish off what the piano's doing, and then we go back into the song. Nice. And then there's another one where like there's like a black metal part. I think it's in this Infernal Darkness. There's this black metal part where it was just open enough where I could walk around, and I don't think anything's really going on vocal wise, so like I just went for it. But
yeah, black metal is a hard one with bass, because if you think about like the actual roots of black metal, there wasn't a whole lot of bass on any of those records.
Yeah, you listen to Keep It Coalescing though?
I have, not recently.
Wizziak is an amazing bassist, and there's a song, and it's another thing. It's criminal how like he gets so buried. Mm-hmm. There's a song where he is fucking running up and down the neck, but it's not like some gratuitous shred thing. It just like totally fits, and I think it's on Reptilian, and it's just incredible how he's just moving, and it's just like it sounds sick, and it probably looks crazy when you watch him play it. And I remember I asked him, I was like, how are you doing that? He's like, oh, I got to go relearn that. And like 2 days later, he comes back, he's like, this is what I'm playing. And I was like, that's so sick that he's like showing me it. I was like, that looks fucking complicated. And then he breaks it down. I'm like, oh, but it's not. That's cool. It's just like these patterns that just go in and out of each other. And I was like, that was so crazy. Like I could ask the source, and he's like, check it out. This is what it is. This is what I did. Oh shit,
dude, that is sick. Yeah, that's sometimes like, those are things that I want to ask musicians sometimes when I'm talking to them, but it's hard when like I'm over like an audio conversation and I'm trying to explain a riff to them. It's like, well, there's no way for them to really like show me how they did it, but
you have to do a visual one.
Yeah, I know. It's
because that's nothing. If they have the guitar in front of them or their instrument, they can like show you like, this is what I'm doing. This is the normal speed. I got to start doing that stuff. I don't want to give lessons, but I got to start posting like, here's how you play this.
Yeah, I like when bands do that, man. I love seeing playthrough videos. I watch those a lot, and obviously like those like behind the scenes recording videos. I think that stuff is much more interesting to me personally than like a music video. But I also get why bands need music videos, because people want the visual representation of the music.
Like back to the studio stuff, like this goes back, like this is the thing that we missed out. We didn't do a behind the scenes on this record because we found out the last 2 times we tried it, it kind of kills the vibe and the mood of what's going on in the studio, because Jason is like, hold on, I got to make sure nothing's out here. I got to make sure I don't have anything that's going to spoil anything. Mm-hmm. And I have to be of a certain mindset, because he's like, I'm going to be on camera. I don't want to fucking say weird, stupid stuff. And it kind of kills the vibe, because then we're pretending to be working. So then when you're watching us in the studio, we're not really working. We're pretending like we're working. So he was saying like, don't do that. Let's just track. And it's like, it makes sense. Okay. So we didn't film at all this time. We just went in the studio and just tracked.
Huh. So is that just like the case, I would assume, for Jason? I don't know. I guess like
it could be. It might be. See like how we could have just left. We would have. He told me how he showed me like his favorite behind the scenes, and it was Job for a Cowboy.
Yeah.
But that's because his assistant was put up cameras and was filming, and then he would edit it on his own. So he knew what was appropriate and what was acceptable, versus us filming, and then what we would think was funny, he'd be afraid like I'd have to see it so I could tell you what's not acceptable, But even then, when the camera's running, he got scared. The way it worked, I guess, was because the guy had just a camera set up and he would forget that they were there. And then he trusted his assistant to make sure that stupid stuff that was said that could be taken out of context wasn't put in. So
yeah, and especially nowadays when, certain metal websites out there are looking for any sort of clickbait that they can to fucking destroy a band.
It's all TMZ again. It's not again, but it's just like, I hate reading metal news when it's just TMZ stuff.
Yep. It's
like what just happened. That band of Buried Above Ground. The guy made a huge fucking mistake. I'm not going to exonerate him. I'm not saying like what he did was like there's some gray area, but he made a mistake and he made bad decisions. And it was in the public eye so in the public eye that they're like called him out on his bullshit, and he's screwed. He stole designs blatantly with his artist, and then he tried to blame the printer of all people, and the printer's like, we have nothing to do with what is on the shirt, we just print it. So it's like, it's between him and his graphic designer, like whoever came up with that stuff, they're the ones who ripped it off. And so like his lie got proven wrong and all that stuff. So yeah, that band kind of, I don't know what they're doing right now, but I know that some people quit. So
yeah, I mean, it's somebody who does art. I'd be pissed off if somebody stole my shit too and like said it was theirs. I don't know.
We've been into the photos. I think we paid somebody to do a design that helped shows me MySpace page. And he used photos that we put in our photo folders on the page, thinking that he thought that was our photos, but some of them were just stuff that we pulled from photographers to post. And one guy got pissed from Spain and was like demanding to sue us and all this stuff. And we're like, hey, it's an honest mistake. Like we didn't tell him to use these photos, so that's our fault. Like he just used them. It was our fault for not giving him the photos that were approved. So that's nothing. And then we were going to try to reason with him. Was like, we'll pay you like $50. And he's like, nope, damage is done. And so we're like, well, then we just won't use your photos. Like, it's not that hard. Hey, guy, here's approved photos. And then he did it.
And then he made like this huge dedicated page and was talking about how we're assholes. Didn't help that 2 band members commented back at him and came off as threatening. And so he posted those messages publicly to make us look even dumber. And we're like, this was totally a misunderstanding. Like, we didn't mean to use your photos. We could compensate you for them, but you've blown it out of proportion where we don't even want anything to do with you. So there you go. Like, you could just sit there and stew, and we moved on. Like, we took your photos down.
I guess you guys have a lot in common with Alyssa from Arch Enemy, because that same shit happened to her.
But she went about it the wrong way. I think she yelled at them or something, or threatened them or something like that. I don't know.
That situation.
I don't know. I think it was definitely. We tried to diffuse it. It didn't work. We just said, "Well, we're sorry. We didn't mean to. We left. Moved on." And then I don't know what she did. And it was even her. It was like her clothing. That's another thing. See, like, it was whoever her endorsement was used the photo, and then all they had to do was ask for permission and give some compensation.
Yeah. It's I get it. That obviously these people want to get paid for their work. And rightfully they should. But the thing that is so prevalent on the internet is things are just put out there and people just take them, and they don't.
It's so funny. Even memes. Yeah. People are trying to, like, not copyright, but try to retain credit for a meme.
Yep.
Like, they put their little watermark on it. It's like, you didn't create anything special, man. But I get it. You want your credit. When people repost this thing, that you're getting credit for it. I get it. Like, we don't want our art getting stolen, so we don't want to be stealing from other people.
Yeah. But
it got it within reason,
It's such a fine line, man. It's so hard to know. Obviously, like, if you do some research, you can figure out if it's been used or stolen or whatever. But I mean, photos, especially, they're like, case in point, when I do like my little mock-up things for the podcast, I go and find a live photo of the member and use that. Mm-hmm. I've only had one photographer get in touch with me and go, "Hey, that's my photo." I was like, "Cool, what would you like me to do? Take it down, credit you, compensate, whatever." He's like, "No, just give me credit." And that was it.
I'll send you a photo. My friend Amber. Okay. I took promos with her, and you can, and I'll send it to you.
Cool. I will credit her whatever she wants.
Yeah.
Because I want to avoid stuff like that too, where like I grab stuff and sometimes it's older photos and that person isn't even like on the internet anymore, so it's like, well, shit, how do I give credit? Because I don't mind giving credit. Because
people. Are you following Return to the Pit?
Yeah, they've been posting some crazy stuff.
How credible was that? I totally remember those shows. I remember that photographer, and then he's on Instagram. It's like,
that's cool. Yeah, the Red Cord guys have been posting like a ton of shit from there lately, and I was like, oh, it's so cool to see that stuff.
He posted a picture of Embrace the End just recently, and I tagged the shit out of everyone that was in the photo.
Oh, man. I still listen to Embrace the End.
Oh, yeah.
That band was so good. I was talking to somebody about them recently, and I was like, holy shit, Embrace the End? They're like, yeah. I was like, good. I'm glad somebody else still remembers them.
I played Destiny 2 with the music off when I don't have my headphones on, and I have like my player right next to the TV, so I put records on, and I was like just going down like, oh shit, I have all these conducting records, and I was just on a binge. I put everything on. I even have like one of their first EPs that they just happen to have, and I was like, yeah, I'm putting that on.
Yeah, I still I don't listen to the stuff after Lou was in the band, but
it was in passion. It was with passion. I put that on as
that's good stuff too, man. Yeah, isn't Abernathy in another band?
He's in Wastewalker.
Yes, that's right.
And if you want to get really nerdy, there's a band for a hot minute, Soma Ross, and it was Abernathy and Spencer.
Nice. I think I remember that band.
Stuff is really good. I have 3 songs. That's the thing that's on my iPod. Like, I can't stream it,
Yeah.
I have the disc somewhere.
See, I think that's probably like the one good thing about keeping iPods around. As nice as like digital, Spotify and Google Music is, iTunes, all that stuff. There are just some things that, are so rare that you're not going to find them anywhere else.
we were on Warped Tour. We were touring with Sworn In, and I remember the guys asking, it's like, you were in a band with Sean before this? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I have it. And I have like my old bands, because I'm not going to carry around my old band CDs. Mm-hmm. And I didn't put them on my phone since I don't really like listen to them. It's just to have. And I had it on my iPod, and I busted out my iPod, and they all started laughing at me like, oh, you still have your music on an iPod? I'm like, you asked to listen to like a band that I was in 2005, you know, like I don't have it on my phone. Like it's not streamable. Like, do you want to listen to it or not? And then they listen to it and they're just kind of like, and that's when the funny part is like, wow, that's weird. This is a completely different style of music. I was like, yeah, I know. Like we were in a post-hardcore band together.
At least you didn't bust out like a CD player with a CD. That would have been even more hilarious.
It was just funny to me how young they are, and they're like, they're laughing at me about an iPod. I'm like, okay, like, sorry. You asked to listen to this old shit that like I don't care about. You guys want to hear it or not?
Hey, I think iPods are still perfectly viable. I mean, you know, sometimes you just can't be connected to the internet and you need music. You know,
you're the nerd one. You had the Zune.
Yeah, but I didn't have it very long. As soon
as it looked cool.
It did look cool, and it could like play movies, which is the main reason I got it. Because there was that one tour we did where like I watched nothing but Pineapple Express and The Dark Knight over and over and over again on that same. It was like a month straight, probably even like more than that, because it was one of those busy years that you guys had. Might have been like 2010. I don't know.
You want to hear something funny about Europe? You put on Doctor Who, and no one wanted to watch it. And I went home, and I don't know how much time passed. It must have been during the hiatus when I finally started watching it, and I was hooked. Like Christopher Eccleston was amazing. David Tennant, even better.
Yep.
Matt Smith was cool. I liked it. I liked how it was kind of drama driven, but like still, like David Tennant was the best. And I went down that hole. I was like, if you didn't introduce that nugget, I probably never watched the show. And that was probably like the worst time to introduce it. I don't know why they didn't like it. It was definitely off the wall, but quirky. I loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah, I think that was one of those things that I was way too into it and wanted other people to be way too into it. And over the past few years, I've stopped watching it altogether. So now
I watched the first episode with not the new Doctor, but the second to last one.
Yeah.
I liked him. I wanted to watch more. I just haven't had time to go watch it. And I know I can't watch it with my girlfriend because it's just too off the wall. Maybe the kids would like it. Like one of her kids might like it, but I definitely am I should watch it on tour when I'm like, you know, trying to go to bed or something.
That's a pretty good way to do it. That's what I would do. Yeah. I watched all the way up to the end of his tenure, like his season. Then I was done. I think like, because it was so in the midst of, all that personal stuff I told you about before we were recording.
Oh yeah.
That now like that show just it correlates with that, and I can't go back now. So I gave up. I don't watch it anymore. But that's fine. You know, I think the cool thing about growing up is you always find something new to get into. So
oh yeah,
I've moved on to other passions and things.
Yep.
Got back.
Here's the thing that's kind of like a good thought to end on, where it's like you and I being a part of the music industry, do you think that made us more aware of the changes and making us still appreciate what we listened to before, but at the same, well, not, I shouldn't say appreciate. I think we appreciate more of what we grew up with, but we're still able to take in new stuff and appreciate what's coming and the changes versus I think someone who they just go through life normally and do all the things of graduating high school, going to college, getting married, cranking out kids, working their 9 to 5, where they don't take in anything new and they only listen to what they listened to before. And then they're like, I hear people constantly like, I don't like what's out right now. And it's like, are you trying? Like, what is it? What do you listen to? And then it's like, you know, they still listen to what they grew up like.
They don't.
14, you know?
Yeah, they don't go outside that box. Interesting. Possibly, man. I never actually really thought about that because I this is one thing that I've always talked to people about is, you know, like I love the old stuff, what I grew up listening to, but I always I just have to look for new music. I get fucking bored if I don't. And I love a lot of new stuff that's out there. I don't care what other people's opinions are about it. If I like it, I like it. So I think in that respect, probably, because I do know a lot more about like behind the scenes and what all these bands have to do to get music out there. I mean, it's not easy at all. It's a fucking nightmare.
Even if you're not listening to new music, it's still incredible that the reach now is discovering. You and I were always talking about Metal Archives.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see like where musicians went or what other band styles were similar. And I think Pandora was one of those things where it's like, I want suggestions. I want to find out what I'm missing out on. And now it's so much easier to find that. There's these bands that like I never would have heard of if I had to find them the old fashioned way.
Yeah, that's true, because it would have been so much harder to find that stuff, because now it's it's so accessible to get everything. But I don't know. I definitely think that if I wasn't around a lot of people, I might not have been as open-minded. But then again, I've always been one to kind of like search new stuff out.
The story I was like telling is like Vela Maya. I saw them play live once. And then I heard that Color Man's Collapse record played, and I was like, I don't get it. This doesn't sound good. then we had the privilege of touring with them, and to see Mark and the guys do their thing every night, and I was just put it off. I was like, this is incredible. I get it now.
Yeah, that's a good point. That touring with a lot of bands changed my mind on a lot of bands that I did not like previously. Same way with you, Vela Maya, wasn't that into them. Touring with them changed that. Ghost Inside, same way. Fucking love Ghost Inside now.
They had the opposite. I went to listen to the records. I'm like, they sound heavier on records.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean that how it's so hard to like, and I mean you guys know this too. Like trying to translate a record to live and live to record, it's such a balancing act. You never know what's going to sound better live or better on a record.
But you were there. When we noticed how important live sound was, Despised Icon is what sold us on that.
Yeah.
I never knew a band could sound like that. And it was just because of the front of house. We're like, oh, they're using a guy. And we never went back. We're like, we have to hire a guy.
To make a good inside joke, maybe we'll end on this. They sounded very immaculate.
Immaculate.
Oh man.
Yeah,
well, shit, Fred. So World War X.
Yeah.
August
2nd.
Fuck yeah.
We're gonna be releasing another track and videos pretty soon. And then we have this next tour coming up. We're on Summer Slaughter starting July 19th.
Yeah, I'll be at that show.
Yep, Cattle D, and the Faceless, and Necrogoblicon.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool lineup, man. I've never seen Necrogoblicon. I'm pretty interested in seeing them.
They're on their way up. They did last year's Warped Tour, and they were one of the biggest hits.
Dude, that guy in that fucking goblin costume like blows my mind. I can't imagine him. He's got to be sweating his balls off in that fucking thing. Ugh. Playing the summer heat. But anyways, Fred, thank you so much for doing this, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been a while.
Man. Yeah, we'll have to. I got to keep in touch more with you guys. I'm really bad about it, but I know you guys all have your own lives, so I just don't. I don't bother too much.
It's just in general, like even so. I jam with the drummer here now, and some days I realize it's like, oh my god, we're supposed to jam tomorrow, and I haven't texted him all week.
Yeah. That's what I did to you today. I've been so fucking busy with work. I was like, oh shit, I gotta.
I texted you more than I texted him.
Damn. Oh fuck. Okay, I'm gonna
be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.